40 tons of potatoes, sitting in a shed, going nowhere. No buyer, no restaurant open to take them. Just a mountain of spuds in a drafty barn off a quiet Cotswold road. 1 year later, that same little business was worth £1.34 million. And if you're British, there's a fair chance you queued for it. This is the story of how a pile of unwanted potatoes turned into one of the most talked about shops in the country, and how a local council nearly strangled it in the cradle. Stay with me, because the decision that almost killed it ended up rewriting the law for every farmer in Britain. Right, let's start with the spuds, because that's where the money started. The farm sits near Chipping Norton in Oxfordshire. Bought back in 2008, around 1,000 acres of hills and heavy clay. For years it grew, in the owner's own words, diddly squat. That's literally what he named it, diddly squat, slang for nothing, a farm named after making nothing. Then came 2020. A field of potatoes came up, about 40 tons of them, far more than anyone planned for. And the plan was simple: sell them on to restaurants and chip shops, same as any grower would. Except the country shut down. Lockdown. Every restaurant in Britain bolted its doors overnight, and just like that, the buyers vanished. 40 tons of potatoes, and not a single customer left to sell them to. So here's what they did. They didn't bin them, and they didn't let them rot. They threw up a shed by the road, a small wooden hut, the kind you drive past without a second glance, stacked the potatoes inside, propped the door open and waited. And people came. They actually came. For potatoes. And it almost didn't happen at all. This was no slick retail launch with a marketing team behind it. It was a shed, a chalkboard, and a pile of potatoes in paper bags. No fanfare, no grand opening. The bet was tiny: shift a few spuds before they spoiled, and claw back something, anything, from a ruined harvest. But word got out. One person told another. Someone posted a photo. And within weeks, the trickle of curious locals had swelled into a steady stream of cars pulling off the road. All for a vegetable you can buy in any supermarket for pennies. That's the first clue something strange was happening here. People weren't turning up because it was cheap. They were turning up because it was real. Now here's where it stops being a farming story and turns into a business story. When the accounts were filed, they told a tale nobody saw coming. In a single year, the assets of the business, that's everything it owns, the stock, the equipment, the cash in the till, leapt from £44,000 to £1.34 million. Read that back. 44 grand to £1.34 million in 12 months. The working capital told the same story. It went from £2,269, barely enough to cover a month of diesel, to £211,000. And the staff grew from 6 people to 17. A wooden shed selling potatoes did all that. Now, before the rumours start, no, the shop did not make millions in sales. That £1.34 million is what the business is worth. Its assets, not its profit, and not its turnover. People muddled that figure with the price of the farm itself, which is a completely separate thing. The real story is almost stranger. A roadside hut grew an entire company around it. And the part that surprised everyone, the single product pulling the biggest crowds wasn't a potato at all. So what were people actually buying? Potatoes, yes, but that was only the opening act. The shelves quickly filled with the farm's own produce, jars of jam, local honey, flour, fresh eggs, cheese from down the lane, bottles of cold-pressed rapeseed oil, proper stuff, grown or made within a few miles of the till. There was even a vending machine for fresh milk straight from the farm's own cows. Then came the candles, and then the branded caps, the hoodies, the T-shirts with the farm's name stamped across the chest. And that's the twist nobody predicted. The merchandise, the hats, the shirts, the little branded bits and barbs sold out, again and again and again. People weren't just driving in for vegetables. They were driving in to own a piece of the place. A simple cap from a shed in Oxfordshire became something people genuinely queued to buy. A farm shop had quietly turned itself into a brand, and the brand ran hotter than anyone expected. Stock sold out so fast that some of those caps and shirts started turning up online, resold by other people at marked-up prices, the way you'd flip a ticket to a sold-out gig. A baseball cap from a farm shop, changing hands at a premium. There were even candles, scented to smell like the farm itself, vanishing off the shelf as fast as they could be put out. None of that was the potatoes. The vegetables got people through the door. The name is what kept them spending. And these weren't just locals popping in for their veg. People were treating the place like a day out, a pilgrimage. Families drove for hours, from the far end of the country, just to stand in a queue in a field. Some turned up before the doors had even opened, waiting in the cold for the chance to buy a bag of spuds and a baseball cap. For a lot of them, the actual shopping was almost beside the point. They'd watched the whole story play out on the telly, and now they wanted to stand inside it. To be part of it. And when I say people came, I mean they came in their thousands. At its peak, the traffic was so bad it formed a tailback nearly 3 miles long, 3 miles, for a farm shop. The police had to be called out to manage it. Cars were abandoned along the verges, mud was dragged across the lanes, and locals couldn't get off their own driveways. It got so chaotic that the owner publicly apologized to the whole village for the gridlock his potatoes had caused. Sit with that for a second. A shop so popular it needed police traffic control. There are shopping centers in this country that would give anything for that problem. But that very success, the crowds, the cars, the chaos, is exactly what lit the fuse on the war that came next. Before we get to that war, and it's a proper David and Goliath one, if you're enjoying this, do me a favor and tap subscribe. It genuinely helps us dig up more British stories like this one. Right, back to it. Here's where it gets ugly. All those crowds needed somewhere to park. So the owner wanted to do the sensible thing, turn a disused lambing shed into a small restaurant serving the farm's own food, lay out a proper car park, and build a short track to keep the mud off the road. Tidy. Practical, good for the local farmers who'd sell their produce there too. The local council said no. West Oxfordshire District Council refused the car park, refused the restaurant, refused the track, the lot. And here's the part that really stings. Before that vote, every official objection was checked. The parish council, no objection. The police, no objection. The county's own transport department, no objection. Environmental health, the drainage team, the ecologist, the conservation board, every single one, no objection. Nobody official stood against it. And they still said no. The restaurant, already built, already serving food to happy customers, was forced to shut its doors, and the public went berserk. When that decision aired, the backlash against the council was ferocious. People accused it of punishing a farm for being famous, of bending the rules not to help a local business, but to make an example of one. The council pushed back, insisting it recognized the benefits to local farmers and to the economy, but that the plans simply didn't meet its other planning requirements. To a lot of people watching at home, that sounded like a very polite way of saying no for the sake of saying no. A thriving business, employing local people, selling local food, tangled up in red tape while the cars kept piling up outside. But he didn't fold. The fight went straight over the council's head to the planning inspectorate, the national body that referees exactly these disputes. And the inspector looked at the very same plans the council had thrown out and granted a temporary car park on the site. The little shed had taken on the bureaucracy and won a round. But a round isn't the whole fight. Temporary is the word that matters there. Permission with a time limit. Conditions attached. The threat of the whole lot being pulled again hanging over every season. The shed had won itself breathing room, not peace. And the running battle with the paperwork would drag on for years, fought out in headlines and council chambers, long after the first crowds had come and gone. And now the part almost nobody realizes. The single biggest thing to come out of that shed had nothing to do with potatoes, or merch, or even the shop itself. The whole saga, the refusals, the headlines, the sheer absurdity of a farm being blocked from selling its own food, helped push a change to the planning rules across England. Farmers were handed new freedom to convert old agricultural buildings, barns, sheds, stores, into shops and cafes, without fighting tooth and nail for full permission every single time. They nicknamed it, inevitably, the Clarkson Clause. Let that land properly. One farm, one shed. 40 tons of unwanted potatoes, and the rules changed for every farmer in the country. A bloke flogging spuds by the roadside ended up reshaping national law. And it's worth saying who actually ran the place day to day, because it wasn't the famous face from the telly. The shop was built and run by his partner, Lisa Hogan, a former actress who took a hut full of potatoes and turned it into a working business with 17 people on the books. The headlines went to one man. The shop floor belonged to her. So step back for a second, because this is far bigger than one famous farm. Here's the brutal truth of British farming. For most farmers, the supermarket is the only buyer in town, and the supermarket sets the price. A farmer can grow a perfect field of potatoes, do everything right, and still earn pennies a bag, while the shop in town sells them on for pounds. Picture it, all the work, all the weather, all the risk, for the thinnest sliver of the final price. The grower carries everything. Somebody else pockets the money. That shed broke the rule. By selling straight to you, no middleman, no supermarket buyer squeezing the price down to nothing, a farm finally got to keep what it earned. A bag of potatoes sold at the farm gate is worth far more to the farmer than the same bag sold into a supermarket depot. That's why this story matters, and why it spread. It was never really about celebrity. It was public, undeniable proof that a British farm could cut out the middleman and win. And just about every farmer who's opened a shop in a barn since has that little shed to thank. The potatoes were never the point. The potatoes were the permission. So let's go right back to where we started. 40 tons of potatoes, stuck in a shed, with absolutely nowhere to go. 1 year later, a business worth £1.34 million. A brand people queue 3 miles to buy a hat from. A planning fight that went all the way to the top, and a change in the law that now helps farmers the length of the country. Not bad for a farm that was named after making nothing. If you got something out of this, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, honestly, would you queue 3 miles for a bag of potatoes? And if you want another one, we've dug into how an ordinary British family quietly built a property empire worth billions without you ever once noticing. It's on the screen now, and it'll change how you see the streets of London forever. Until then, keep your eyes open and don't trust a price tag until we've had a proper look at it first.